In this episode of Threading Thoughts, we discuss robotic process automation or RPA. RPA enables the automation of routine digital tasks. With RPA, software users can create software, robots, or bots that can learn, execute, and mimic rules based business processes. A business process automation technology, RPA, is an intelligent process automation. It enables an ease in workflow with multiple steps and applications, and it is designed to reduce the burden of employees for completing repetitive, simple tasks. The extension of legacy business process automation beyond the confines of an individual process is aided by RPA. AI tools, along with RPA, can extend the scope of process automation beyond just individual processes. However, are organizations digital process ready? Raghav Nyapati has over 2 decades of experience in driving digital technology strategy, evangelizing product management, implementing digital transformation, and providing business consulting across multiple industries using digital automation products such as robotics process automation and artificial intelligence. He is the head of automation, director of product management at ASG Technologies, where he is the founder and creator of robotics automation and cognitive automation product, which provides best-in-class digital automation and intelligent automation platform. He is also the industry ambassador and a digital evangelist in robotic process automation, cognitive automation, complementing AI skills such as NLP, CV with RPA, providing mentoring, coaching, and evangelizing digital automation products. Welcome, Raghav. Thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. It's such a pleasure having you on Threading Thoughts.
Thanks, Mridula. It's a pleasure as well for my side, and thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Raghav, I just wanted to start off with asking you, what is this new normal, given that, this year has been particularly difficult? So what is this new normal? Why do you think organizations need to shift the focus to sort of become a little more digital savvy, perhaps? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so that's a great question, right? And that's more relevant and pervasive now because what we have seen over the last 1.5 years, right, due to the pandemic is we started working from home, right? We don't have to move to office, go to office, or even schools. Everything is digitized. So this is the right time for all the organizations to rethink and reimagine the way the current business models, which have been evolved, right, from the time when automation started. So just to give you a brief overview, so the history of how it all started, right, or
Right.
why we need to automate. So around 1800s, right, the first industrial era started when with Ford and others going to mass production, and where the first initial seed of automation was started in US and then followed by Japan and other countries.
Correct.
Then in 90s, we saw companies like Microsoft, Google, IBM, all these big shots, they have introduced the digital information era, right? Where
Right.
we have information sharing, we have connected machines. So one machine can talk to another machine. So when I was in school, I could never imagine that I could access something which was there in US, right, through information. So
Correct.
that was very, very exciting for all of us, right? How one machine can talk to another machine or share information. So that era actually has the information era. Then 2000s, when we started the actual digital era, where everything is on data. So data, as we say, it's a new electricity or new oil. It is weaving to it together everything, right? So billions of terabytes of data, gigabytes of data are getting generated as we talk in 1 minute, right?
Correct.
Facebook, WhatsApps, all these applications. So our kids, this generation is surrounded by data with mobile apps, smartphones. So that's where I think this is the right time when organizations think, right? As a consumer, we are imagining that, okay, I feel something which is needed for me to ease of use, right? Or which I need in at my fingertips to do something or book something or something. So all these brick and mortar organizations also, which are there. So I'll give an example of paint industry.
Right.
So I got a strange request from one of the paint companies during the COVID, saying that I'm not able to sell my paints because nobody is visiting my shop, right? And what should I do? So these are the companies which have been there as a brick and mortar traditional companies. They need to
True.
reinvent their business model so that they can be relevant, right? Or else they will be out of business. So that is what I think that personally, that's the push which is coming due to this new normal. And I would say that's a blessing in disguise, right, for this situation which we have, that companies are rethinking. They're saying, whenever I talk to people about automation, RPA or hyper automation, they're no longer strangers to those terms. They're saying, oh, okay, I know, at least I understand, and how can I implement in my current organization, right? So that's what I would say. This new normal has really benefited all those companies to rethink, reorganize, and reinvent their models and a push towards the automation and digitization.
Very true. As you say, it's completely erased borders, as you mentioned.
Yes.
So the accessibility or the need to reach out across borders is completely erased because everything is one amalgamous, information era.
Yes.
But can you just briefly mention about, hyper automation perhaps and its
Yes.
landscape?
Yeah. So just again to start evolution of hyper automation, right? So in 90s we started with something called process automation. So
Okay.
that is where companies started to redesign or realign their processes. So I'll give an example from bank. I come from banking industry, where all these processes are in silos. So mortgage department would have their own processes, retail would have own processes, consumer would have own processes, and within these processes also there are a lot of silos where one department will not talk to another department, right?
Right.
So now, how do you make these departments talk to each other? Legal, HR, finance, right? So that there is a common thread or a streamlining of these processes, so that anyone top, like CTO level or CIO level, can visualize, okay, this is what is happening across my organization. So that's where this business process automation or management tool started in early 90s, where they started to redesign or rethink these processes and streamlining and orchestrating. Then in around 2000, 6 years back, around 2014-13, when I was in US, I started hearing about these robots, right? Robotic process automation.
Right.
So that is when people realize that, okay, not only automation of process is helpful, but we should also automate the tasks within this process. So in the process, you can have a human task, you can have a bot task, right? So how do you automate these repetitive, mundane tasks within your process using RPA? And RPA allows us to do a digital labor arbitrage, right? So no longer we need a people to outsource your task. So bots can take up your
Correct.
task, right?
Correct.
Then the need which of the hour which we are seeing is moving from RPA, which doesn't have any self-learning or intelligence, towards AI and machine learning, right? Where you can induce self-learning intelligence within the RPA or any other platform, so that there is a learnability of that, right? And then the bots remember whatever has been trained and then produce or predict results. So we are seeing a lot of applications, right? Amazon, Facebook, WhatsApp, all these are applications of AI. Now, these technologies cannot sustain, right, in next 2 to 3 years as siloed or standalone. So we see, again, I'll give an example of big shots like Microsoft, IBM, all these companies, they have gone ahead and acquired RPA products. And companies like UiPath and Automation Anywhere, they have also partnered with process mining, process discovery tools. Why this is happening is they felt that not only standalone RPA can sustain, other technologies cannot also sustain standalone. So there
Okay.
is a need for amalgamation or conglomeration. So I would say the right word for hyper automation is conglomeration of all these technologies together. So we'll have process mining discovery, we'll have UI UX, we have low code, no code, where people can drag and drop. We have RPA, then augmented with AI and ML capabilities, right? So the entire spectrum is called hyper automation.
And you were absolutely right because within departments in one organization,
Correct.
what actually happens is it's not only lack of say collaboration, but it's also a lack of efficiency, right?
Yes.
So the lack of communication between these departments also creates some sort of an inefficiency, which will
Yes.
affect the organization per se on a whole.
Yes, absolutely.
And this bird's eye view is actually helping them to sort of come together much better.
Correct. Correct. So they will. So what we are talking now about is customer 360, right? Where everything related to the customer is there in your insights dashboard. So people are envisioning, and recently I have been discussing with various customers who want this insights dashboard. So I log in the morning. So as soon as you see your WhatsApp, right? similar to that, you should see what is happening in your organization and also what is happening at your customer's place. So is there any issues, or is what are the, so in banks, right, a typical example is how many transactions, how many defaults, all those things you should get it as a alert, as a message.
Right.
So that's the dashboard.
Instead of you going and trying to talk to different people, it's a
Correct.
long and inefficient process,
Yes,
time
inefficient
consuming as
process.
well.
Yes.
But that's really nice. But when you talk about digital processes, who is responsible for creating these digital products? The roles and responsibilities are often very amorphous. So
Yes.
who actually takes up the mantle in an organization?
Yeah, that's again a great question, right? So, as you rightly said, organizations are striving for adoption of these technologies. Now, who will take the baton, right, and move forward? So that's when we have a role called digital product manager. So earlier we used to have product manager role. So still we have product managers existing, but I would call them as a digital product managers, because these are the people who look beyond the traditional technologies, look everything from a digital eyes, right? A
Right.
digital
A
view.
perspective is
So
different.
yeah, digital perspective, when they can see that everything they see is like, how can I digitize this process? How can I do this? So I would call that person as a CEO of a product. Right.
Right.
So product management is all about building the right products at the right time, right? And the greatest product manager, founder, or CEO was Steve Jobs, right? He had always this long-term vision, and he used to see that from a 30,000 feet, always, right? Saying that this is what is coming, and he used to envision that and build this product. So same vision we as a digital product manager should have. And why I call them a CEO is they own that product. So they create that product, they nurture that product. So I have a term called CNG. It's not the gas, but it's called create the product, nurture the product, and grow the product. So
Grow the
that's the job of
product.
a digital product manager, right? So you are the person who are ideating this product, right? Who are doing market research, or who are reviewing the customers and user personas, and you are creating the idea. Then you are nurturing this idea. And I'll give an example again with the automation landscape. So people have started building RPA, right?
Right.
And with an idea of automating repetitive tasks. Now, how do you nurture this, right? So they are nurturing this by adding some intelligent features to this, right? So they are enriching this product. So that's where I call this nurturing or enriching this product is always required as a digital product manager. So you can see beyond what is happening. So currently I'm able to solve this problem, but 5 years down the line, RPA won't sustain, right? Unless you add more or complement more features to that. So that's
Correct.
where this nurturing is very important. And then growing. So once you nurture the product or you add more features, more technologies, then how do you grow that product so that it is scalable, right? So I
Correct.
call this term as CNG of digital product manager's role, and I call this product manager as a glue, right? And he's a glue between all those various teams. So he's a glue between a developer, a designer, a UX person, architect, end customer, and also your QA person who tests the product, right? So he's in the middle as a glue, and he is a point of contact and interaction for all those teams.
Correct, correct. So he's almost a fulcrum. He's the one that
Yes.
has to make it work. And it's, as you mentioned, any digital process, it has to update itself. So that's
Yes.
where the nurturing happens. You update it to the
Nurturing.
next level, and you just don't stagnate at one position where
Yes.
you are right now. It's also a lot of, an idea of the future, some sort
Yes.
of an idea of where we might go,
Very
what
much.
might happen. So that
Yeah.
vision is also very important, I guess.
Yes. And really, I love two people, right? Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. So both have this vision. So
The
Elon
vision,
Musk is
yes.
planning for colonizing the Mars, right? And he's saying, I think yesterday I was checking one of his podcasts where he's predicting in 2 years people will be in Mars, right? And that's again an idea, a need which has come, and that what he's nurturing and he's trying to grow it.
Absolutely, and also just the thought of a private rocket launcher is
Yes.
something mind-boggling, and we have gone
Yes.
to very, very different heights from there. So
Yes.
the farsightedness, I think, is very, very
Person.
important,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
but talking about farsightedness, what does it take to build these valuable solutions? You have these problems, you know that these problems are tangible, but what does it take to actually build these solutions?
Yeah, so that is again a great question. Like everyone asks, right? We
Yeah,
have an idea. How do we take it from idea to a product?
correct.
So that's where I have another, and again acronym. I'm sorry, I'm throwing a lot of acronyms, but so I have one more model called 5D model, which is a pipeline, right? So as you know, it's a pipeline. Something enters into a pipe, and then something is getting produced, right? So an
Correct.
idea enters this digital product pipeline, I call it, and a product life cycle when a product is what is generated. And I'll tell you what is this 5D, right? So there's no mystery on this 5D model. So the first D is the discovery part. The second D is the design part. Third is the develop, and then fourth is the deploy, and the fifth one is the digital marketing part or the marketing part, right? So we have seen these terms, right, in normal terminologies, but I call this as 5D model because it's all about digitizing and digital, right?
Correct.
And the first one is discovery, where how do you discover the pain points or of the existing customers, right? So, and in the current scenario, there are a lot of technologies which can help us, right? So, for example, data science itself, if you deploy or implement anywhere, it will give you a lot of insights about the current problems which the customers are having, and that will give you more data than anything else, correct? And then you have digital marketing tools like Google AdWords or anything like that. And if you post something and then you say that, okay, I need this information, or I'm trying to build on this idea, you'll get a lot of response on that. So right now I would say the discovery has become very easy for us. Earlier
Right.
we used to write this handwritten questionnaires, if you remember, during our MBA days and all, right? And these questionnaires, we used to go each and every shop and then ask them to
Correct.
sign and fill
Exactly.
it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to
And
get
then
the
we used to,
answers,
yeah, try to get the
cajoling them
answers.
to answer.
Yeah, cool. So now we don't need this. So with all these digital tools, I would say digital discovery has become very easy. So once you discover what you need, what are the pain points, that is where you try to design, right? So design on the idea. So again, for the design, there are a lot of tools, but I would say the design thinking is more important. So that's where I call this 5D, is when the agile meets the design thinking, right? So design thinking approach we should adopt in this digital pipeline, because we get from a customer perspective. So we identify what the customer needs and what are the user personas. So not only target the entire only the one customer, but who are they? So for example, I'll give you in a bank again, right? So there are a lot of user personas in the bank whom you can target. It can be the front office person, it can be the back office person, it can be the technology head, right? Or even it can be the CIO or CTO. So first you identify who are the personas for whom you are building this idea or the product, right? So that is more important. So in design thinking, we take that approach. We start with the user personas whom we are targeting. Then we start with these small prototypes, right, which we build for them. We validate that, and then we reiterate if it is required, right? So
Right.
that is the design thinking part of it. How do you design from an end customer point of view? Then the third D is the develop or the build. So what actually goes into the building of this product? Again, here I would the tool for this for any product manager is the agile way of building it, right? So in agile, what we really do is we get a larger idea, right, bigger idea, and then we break that idea into smaller pieces, so that we can iteratively build those ideas, right? So each of these ideas can be a user story. So in agile terms, we use something called user story, and user
Right.
story is something which is like which can be showcased easily, right? So it's a minimum viable product. We are not showcasing the entire product, but we are taking that entire idea, breaking down into smaller ideas or user stories, and each of these story has a front load value. So I'll call this as a front load value because immediately you can show the value, right?
Yeah. You
And
can
it's a
immediately
testable
visibly
value.
see it.
Yeah,
Right.
immediately visibly seen. So you don't have to wait till entire 3 months earlier used to do. Now you can show it in 2 weeks cycles, right? So that's where. So in build phase, I would say testable value is very important. Build the user stories, create a testable value, show it, and then build on top of it, right? If something goes wrong. So front loading and testable value is what I call the build phase. Then we have the deploy phase, where right now we again have lot of tools which we are using for deployment, right? So something is emerging called digital operations.
Okay.
Yeah, so we don't have to rely on the traditional operations where we go through build and test and deploy. Digital operations or DevOps, right? All these are helping us to have a continuous building and continuous deployment, right?
Right.
And this deployment can happen anywhere. Right now, we are not restricted where exactly we want to deploy. You can deploy on-premise or cloud. So again, companies like Microsoft, Google, and Amazon have done extremely well in coming up with Azure and other services who have helped us to build. We don't have to again own our infrastructure now, right? We are again, it's like arbitraging the even infrastructure, right? So I will call that like you don't own that. You are just saying that you are outsourcing your infrastructure to your cloud environment, and you can deploy either in cloud or on premise based on a requirement. So that is the
Right.
deployment part. Final part is the marketing. So once you have done everything, how do you market? So again, in the digital product lifecycle, you have digital marketing tools, right, which help us in marketing this. So we do SEO, ads, or whatever tools and
Correct.
technologies you use to market these products, and that has become more and more relevant now. So with you can see the examples of again Amazon, Facebook, WhatsApp. All these companies are doing digital marketing in Google, right, day-to-day life. So you type in something, you get an ad based on your
Correct.
need, right? And before buying anything, you go to Amazon and you get product reviews and recommendations, right? That
Correct.
nobody would have thought earlier. So I would say this is my 5D model, which will help us from an idea to a actual product which can be consumed by an customer.
That's very interesting, and you're so right, because the moment we decide and do a search term, it already pops up these ideas to
Yes,
me that you go to these places, this is what you find. So it's
yes,
almost doing my work for me. I find
yeah.
it much easier. I just have to have that idea in my mind and type it. Sometimes
Type
I
it,
don't
yes,
even need to. My phone picks up what I'm saying and gives me these ads the moment I open
yes,
my
correct,
Facebook or any other social media. So it's
yeah.
becoming more and more powerful at
Mm.
helping us in those visions. But these are for individuals. But as a strategy for say organizations, large organizations and firms, what strategies do you think that they should follow? Not only to bring in digital transformation, most of them are, but I think the key idea is to sustain the digital transformation.
Yes, yes. So that question is very relevant for any organizations, right, who are trying to adopt these technologies. So the first thing we should all understand is digital technologies or the products never die, right? So because like physical products have a wear and tear, right? If you buy a refrigerator or a TV or mobile phone,
Correct.
for that sense, my daughter has 3 mobile phones. Every year she'll buy one mobile phone, right? So because something she'll say something is not she broke or
Exactly.
whatever.
Something goes
Right?
wrong, something is not working optimally.
Yeah, normal. So you go, you have tendency to buy something new. But digital products, the beauty of digital products is that you don't have to throw that product away, right? It is there. And if something goes wrong, only thing you do is you change some configuration or you add some patch or update to that product so that it works in a seamless fashion, right? Again, the technologies such as AI and machine learning, they are doing such things to our existing products. So they are bringing, so if for example, Alexa, I would see, right? My daughter keeps on using Alexa. So each and every day they are adding new skills. So
Correct.
something you feel it is not there, immediately the Alexa knows that this skill is not there. For example, suppose your daughter likes listening to rhymes or whatever, right? Music. Immediately you will see that next day or in a week, these skills are getting added. So that's like they are making sure that you don't throw away Alexa and go to some other product,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So that
The
is the
retention,
nurturing and the growth, yeah,
they
retention
nurture
part, the customer
retention.
retention. Yeah. So that is where I would say it's very important for our digital transformation, the organization which are going through. It should be a top-down mandate, but also it should be a bottom-up, and it should be a hybrid model, right? Where you start with top-down, where you have leadership deciding that these are the few processes which needs to be automated or which needs to be in the digital pipeline. But you also have to take up the bottom-up approach where you understand. So there are, again, in the product management terminologies, we have something called one more acronym I'll use, uh, DFV, right? Which is the desirability, the feasibility, and the viability.
Right.
And if you have heard that, right? That so your desirability comes from the idea and the customers, right? Who are desiring this feature or this idea. But the feasibility part is the when you have a bottom-up approach where you go to your technical teams, your operations teams, you talk to them, you say that I am thinking of this idea, right, from top down. but is it feasible? Like suppose I am working for 1,000 company employees. Is it really feasible for me to build? So we don't want to go to a moonshot idea, right? Immediately.
Correct.
So like suppose we don't want to send rockets to the Mars in 1 year. So that is not feasible. So ideas has to be feasible. So that feasibility comes from bottom up. So that's why I always take an hybrid approach for any organization, right? Start with the top with an idea with the desirability of that, then go top down where you have a feasibility test. Then you have one more component called viability, which is again forms a Venn diagram, which says that whether it is viable based on the budget or revenues which we have, right? So we again don't want to spend all the money or burn all the money in this idea.
Correct.
We can have multiple ideas which can actually augment a single idea to do the same thing, right? So that is where what I call as a DFV product building framework, which is very important for any organization to understand and when they start the digital automation journey. And also I would say the employees upskilling, right? So each and every employee in the organization have to be upskilled in these technologies, because in future I would say 5 years down the line we'll have this co-creation capabilities where
Right.
you'll have bots, you will have humans, right? Both of them have to work together. We are already seeing that in manufacturing. We are seeing that most of the tough jobs are done by the bots now. And if you must have seen also in the medical, right, in hospitality and
Absolutely.
medical industries, where
Healthcare
you
industry
have robots
especially,
doing
it's
the surgeries, where our hands don't move 360 degrees, robots are doing the surgery, right? And
right.
people are accepting that. Earlier people used to be afraid when they see a robot, but now they are accepting that okay, the doctor is not able to do this, that's why he's augmenting. So I would say all these co-creation skills and augmentation skills will be the future, where employees have to be upskilled and also be enabled to work with these bots and these machines to make this digital transformation sustainable and scalable, right, for the future. So we don't want to end up in a technology which is not sustainable 50 years from now, right? We have to create that backbone in a stronger way so that it is sustainable.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's incredibly informative because, as you correctly said, there is a lot of augmentation that is expected in the next couple of years. It's not replacement alone. It's a
Correct.
lot of collaboration and augmentation. And I think we need to upskill ourselves quite a bit to come up to that level because right now, what we are doing and what can be done, there is a huge, I would say, a gap. And this bridge is all these tools that we're building up right now.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Raghav, for such an informative session and sparing your time to spend it with us. It's just been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you, Mridha. Thanks for having me, and I hope this added value and a lot of information which we can use in future.
Thank you, absolutely, now without a doubt. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Have a